Hi, guys. We're going to talk today about what most people think and what's going on with the consumer. And, this is something that I'm talking about more and more because it is the public that's holding this whole Ponzi scheme together. And so a lot of people think that the consumer can just keep consuming. After all, we are a consumer-driven economy. But what if I were to tell you that there are a lot more cracks that are showing up in the consumer? And what that really might mean is that we are coming to the conclusion of this huge Ponzi scheme called fiat money, wherever you are in the world. And so what you need to really do is become as independent and self-sufficient as possible inside of community. So part of the way that you can do that is hit that like button. Make sure if you haven't already to subscribe and join us every single Tuesday for this. Because the new data that came out last week on the consumer is that the consumer confidence plummets to its lowest level since 2021. What was happening then? We were still inside of the pandemic, right? And that information just came out. And at the same time, a couple days later, U.S. consumer sentiment sinks. And why? Because people are anticipating inflation driven by the tariffs. Now, these are two different programs. Consumer Confidence Index and the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index are two sources of information on the current degree of optimism among American consumers. So to see both of them plummeting at the same time is not a good thing. And it is that simple. Both of them are published monthly, but together they suggest whether the mood of consumers and their attitude towards spending is getting better or worse. What do you think? I think it's getting worse and worse and worse. But considering the fact that consumer spending accounts for about 2/3 of economic growth in the U.S., it's pretty significant. And the reason why I put those air quotes around growth is because how much growth is really that inflation that forces you to spend more money on the necessities of life, right? But hey, let's just call that inflation growth. Well, as we know, a rose by any other name will say different things. And we're seeing it all around in the closures of actually a lot of stores. And this raises the question, and I think, Joshua, this is what you asked me about before. So Kohl's is closing a bunch of stores in 2025, 27 stores. But of course, they're not the only stores that are closing. Dollar General, Forever 21, TD Bank is closing 38 branches. Domino's Pizza is closing more than 200 stores. And a major party store, well, they're closing as well. That means a whole lot more unemployment on top of all of the job cuts in the federal government. Okay, can you see the problem also and how that would extend to commercial real estate and even residential real estate with delinquencies on home mortgages now up at 21-year highs, 21-year highs. You want to make sure. I did a video this morning with Jennifer Zandel, who is one of our strategy specialists, and some of you may know her. You may work with her. And she was in the mortgage industry for 30 years, so it was a great conversation. Make sure that you watch that. But how do you think all of these closures and all of these delinquencies and all of this new real estate that's coming onto the market, how is that going to impact consumer sentiment and spending? It's going to make a decline. That's a problem for corporations that are depending upon that spending. And with the tariffs coming into play, how much of that can they pass through to an already thinly stretched consumer? And how do we know they're so thinly stretched? Aside from the debt level that they've taken on, making credit card debt, et cetera, making all-time highs, which we've talked about recently, DoorDash to offer pay later plans to postpone delivery costs. There you go. You order something from DoorDash. You don't have to pay for it now. You can break it into 4 little easy payments. And let me tell you, you've got a lot of large companies like, JP Morgan Chase and others that are moving into this space because they need to meet the consumer where they are, and the consumer is strapped. But think about this. If you have to finance your burrito bowl, it doesn't scream golden age of prosperity, does it? So are you prepared? If you don't have your sound money strategy in place, I'm telling you, don't be like a deer in the headlights and just wait for it to hit you. Hopium is not a strategy. You have to have a solid plan, and that has never been more important than it is right now. So let's take a look a little bit deeper on U.S. consumer spending. It's sluggish amid brewing inflation. Now, they wanted us to think that they had inflation under control. I mean, it's reduced. All that really means when they say that inflation is lower is that the speed at which the prices are going up are happening a little bit more slowly. But they can do all sorts of accounting tricks to make things look even less true than they really are. So you really have to depend upon your personal experiences rather than what you're being told. However, here we go. Household saving rate climbs and disposable income growth is soft. What does that mean? When people are nervous about the future, they have a tendency to save more money and spend less money until they have more clarity. So currently, the changes in inflation-adjusted spending month over month, that's what MOM means, month over month, looks pretty stinky, doesn't it? Yes, it does. And the change in PCE inflation, so this is the central bank's preferred checking in on personal expenses and consumer expenses. Well, look at that. It's been going up pretty darn steadily, hasn't it? I don't think they have that inflation under control. Nope, I don't think so. And in the meantime, what does that do? What does that inflation really do to your real disposable income month over month? It makes it decline, because if it costs you more to buy that loaf of bread, you have less money available to buy that blouse or that go on that vacation or buy that new car or anything else, right? But the reality is this was part of the plan when they put the system in place back in 1913. And they actually said that if you have to work more to maintain your current standard of living, you have less time to pay attention. And we know that that's true. You guys know that that's true. Every time you try and tell your friends or your family what you see happening, and they look at you like you have three heads, but it doesn't make it less true. Right? It doesn't make it less true. And obviously, once they know that their personal income in reality is declining, they're going to try and save. People are trying to save for a rainy day, but we also know that there aren't too many people that have an extra $500 put aside in case of emergency. And if you have to put your burrito bowl on 4 easy payments, that is a big problem. And think about it. They wouldn't be putting all of that money in advertisement and all of that into it if it wasn't broad-based. That means a lot of people are needing this extra tool. And remember, 2/3 of the GDP, gross domestic product, that's all the money that floats through the system, is consumer spending. This is a huge problem because there are limitations. And you want to sound money that also has limitations. Why has gold survived as the primary currency metal for thousands and thousands of years? Because it is used in every single sector of the global economy. So you have the broadest base of demand. And again, I'm going to remind you, because people think, well, I can't afford this or I can't afford that. The reality is that gold and silver in any form at all, is monetary at its base. And you want to be diversified, because there's gold, and then there's gold, and there's silver, and then there's silver. So call us. Make sure, if you haven't already done it, please subscribe, and we'll let you know when we've got a next important video. And as you know, we're upping the time that we're publishing, because there are so many things that are happening. I mean, it used to be when I would sit down and do my research and I'd gather all my data, and I like my PowerPoints. You guys know that. So I would just, grab an article or grab a headline and slap it on there. And by the time I was ready to do my work, maybe I had, 30 different slides set up to do whatever it was going to do for the next week. You know what? These days, I have like 90 or 100 of them to choose from. There's not enough time in the day, but that's why I love Tuesdays, because now you guys can ask me any question that you want, and we're going to start with Theodora. And she has 3 questions. And you are very welcome. She says, thank you so much for doing this every Tuesday. It means so much to be informed. I appreciate your time. And you know what? Time is the thing that we have a limited supply of, and it's so valuable. And I appreciate your time for being here and making this a priority. So thank you. It's always got to be a win-win, a mutual thing, or it doesn't work. So, will they confiscate gold in this day and age, and knowing that hardly anyone owns it? I don't think people understand about the confiscation, and I don't think that that's why that hardly anyone owns it. Number one, I do think that is a very strong probability, simply because in this country, in the U.S., historically, gold has been confiscated 3 times. The last time was 33. And if you don't think price manipulation is a form of confiscation, make sure you go back and watch the series on confiscation that I've done. It's not finished yet, but we've got 3 videos out on that, and I think it's important to understand. So reality, taxation, confiscation, the way they manipulate you, that perception management to get you, to nudge you in the direction that they want to go, that's why hardly anyone owns it. But most people have a gold wedding band, don't they? That's what they wear if they get married and they have a gold wedding band. That's basically what they use. So gold is still, people understand gold at a very subliminal level. But yeah, I think they're already confiscating it, and they are in a number of countries in Africa, like Zimbabwe. They'll call it royalties, they'll call it fees, they'll call it all different names, rather than coming out and saying what it actually is, which is a form of confiscation. But yes, I think they are confiscating gold. Not only will they, I think they are. I think you're really asking me, will it be an overt or obvious confiscation? And yes, I think that's a possibility. But let me also say that even if they don't do an overt confiscation, I personally prefer, as you guys know, I don't own very much bullion. Just this little piece of bullion so I can hold it up, and a few things on my travel jewelry, because I like to put myself in a position where whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong, it really doesn't matter. And so for me, understanding the true value of an ounce of gold and how they do those overnight resets, give me this 100% of the time, because I'm able to buy this way below just the basic fundamental value of just 1 ounce of gold. And should they do an overt confiscation, I have a much better shot at being able to continue to not just hold this, but actually use it in the sound money strategy through the trend cycle, so that I come out the other side of it much better. And Is physical gold going to transmute into digital gold at some point? If so, is that why would hold it right now so it could hold its value when they do transmute it over to Bitcoin? I actually postponed this till next week, a piece that I did for this week. It's on stablecoins versus CBDCs. So you definitely want to watch that video, because whether it's Bitcoin or stablecoins or CBDCs, all of these are tools of control. Bitcoin and stablecoins are being used as a Trojan horse to get you comfortable with the digital surveillance economy. So honestly, transmuted into digital gold? No, that's what they want you to think. That's why when you look at cryptocurrencies, what color are they? They're gold, they're silver, or they're platinum. Why? Why aren't they purple or green or orange? Because people know that gold is sound money. Even if they don't fully understand it up here, back in the recesses of the mind, they do. No, this is not digital gold. It is used in one place. It uses up the energy. This does not. This stores the energy. Both of them take energy this takes it to create it. This takes it to mine it and then convert it into different forms. But this holds the energy that can then be used in any other sector of the global economy as it goes from one to the other. This uses up the energy. This is not digital gold. So when you're talking about the digital markets, because yes, this has to convert for day-to-day use. And the easiest way to convert that is an actually fully backed digital money. And what I mean by backed is if you hold it in there, if you want it out, you can pull it out. You have to have the ability to pull the asset out of the system. Otherwise, it is merely pegged to an erroneous price that they easily manipulate. It means nothing, as we've seen in Zimbabwe. It means absolutely nothing. And since we're hearing more and more about asset-backed tokens, you better make sure that it's only truly backed if you have access to the underlying asset. If you don't, it's not backed, it's garbage. And is that why? Yeah. Okay, no, So is that why you would hold it right now so that it could hold its value when they do transmute it over to Bitcoin? Don't transmute. Don't agree to that. I'm not going to agree to it. It's in your possession, so obviously you can see that I have this piece of gold in my hand. But to those that are in power, to central banks and governments, it's invisible. It is above central banks and it is above governments. We will have that option. I'm not going to take that option. We have to see what happens on the other side of it and what that system looks like. And then I will convert, depending upon if that's our form of our tool of barter, then I'm going to have to work with it. But I'm going to have my gold outside of the system and then convert it as I need it. I'm not going to convert it and let them deal with it, because have they done so far? They've taken all your purchasing power away. They've taken your power away. You have no tool to control what the central banks or the governments are doing, because you cannot pull the gold out of the system like we used to. So you're holding gold right now to hold your purchasing power so that when the overvalued real estate and stock market corrects, you actually have something, and you will see who survives this. You're going to have something to convert into that. So if you got to convert it into a digital currency for a second to execute the rest of the strategy, call us. You need to understand the strategy a little bit better, and our strategy specialists are happy to take that time with you. And Wolf asks, hi, Lynette, In a financial crisis, would 24 or 18 karat gold jewelry be worth more per ounce than pre-33 gold collectible coins, or any gold coins for that matter? What about gold bars? So that's a great question, Wolf. And, the 24 is the most pure and the softest form of gold. Now, what's kind of interesting, and in a crisis, we're going to see what happens. But as you know, here in the U.S., this is just a regular piece of an American Eagle gold bullion, and it's 22 carats. But we have the Buffalo, which is 24 carats. That has commanded a little bit of a premium, and it could continue to do that. If it's in jewelry form, and 18 carats is like 75% pure. So depending, and a lot of the gold jewelry that is out there is actually even 14 carats, which I think is like 55% pure. And remember, it's monetary at its base, so it would be melted down. A coin is more likely to be worth more simply because it is more easily recognizable. It wouldn't have to be transferred into another form, even though it could be. So it is more likely that the pre-33 coins would be a lot more than the gold bars, even presuming they didn't do an overt confiscation, because there are a whole lot more of them than there are of the pre-33s. Remember, after they did that confiscation, they melted down a whole bunch of the gold coins that were used to be in circulation. The ones, and it depends, because this one, which is just my raw lib that I use for my emergency savings, right? I'm going to liquidate, if I needed to, I would liquidate this first before I would liquidate this, which is about converting into income producing assets at a certain point. When we see that accumulation pattern happening, then we start to convert this into those other income producing assets. But these will always be worth more, just as they've always been worth more than just your raw gold or your bullion gold, because there's a finite amount in all gold, but there's an even more finite amount of these that are known to exist, maybe 2%, if that, of the total gold market, right? And so, you're not going to be able to buy this at or near spot because they have a rarity factor inside of them. So they will always be worth more than just regular bullion gold and the gold bars, which are also really technically bullion. If you can hold it in an IRA, think about it as bullion. And Goldens and Coons asked, do you think the Fed has any contingency plans for stagflation? I think the Fed is out of their minds going, I don't know what to do, because we're at the end of the currency's life cycle, so things don't really work. Do they have contingency plans for stagflation? What is this? And just to define stagflation, because that was going to be your question, right? So stagflation is where your incomes basically go down at the same time that your costs go up. So you're in a stagflationary period, and that's what they want to call the 60s and the 70s, which I was alive then, so I remember that period very well. But inflation, there's only one way. I mean, it's easy, really. There's only one way to fight deflation, and that's with inflation. There's only one way to fight inflation, and that's with deflation. So stagflation, where that's why stagflation is such a problem, because how do they battle both at the same time? Understanding that we are at the end of the currency's purchasing power. Look on the purchasing power of the consumer at the Fed. You will see that big fat zero on that lower left-hand axis and how close we are to that zero. They can make it look like, we still have 3 cents, we still have 3, but it's going down, 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 down. Definitely watch the video that I will be putting out next week on the stable coins. That's really important. And if they cut rates, they fan the fires of inflation. And if they raise rates, that's exactly what we were talking about. They crash the economy. So do they have any other tools? Not for that, but watch the stablecoin video. You know, I consider that to be probably one of the single most important videos that I'm going to be doing in a really long time. So stay tuned for that because I want to make it better than I made it. I want to make it more clear. So we decided to take a deep breath and make it better, and you'll see it next week, I promise. And Rochelle Glenn asks, do you think the public schools will be up and running throughout this economic downturn and transition? I think that some will. Yes, I do. I think that there's going to be a lot of challenges, though, in maintaining perhaps as many schools out there because we're already seeing cuts in so many different areas. And really what happens, you look at what happens to schools or the police force or the fire departments or all those social services that we pay for through our taxes. You know, if through this downturn, the taxes are going to go down, but wow, there's an awful lot of pension commitments that they have. This is going to be a mess. This is going to be an absolute mess. So yeah, I think the public schools will be up and running in some form, but I think it's going to look different than it does right at this moment. And Wolf says, I'm shocked at the price of gold at 2:50 p.m., $3,115.25. I assume that's because of tariffs taking effect tomorrow, correct? Partly yes, and a big part yes. But remember, we have that shift where in this country, we are using digital gold. That's gold that does not nor ever will exist. And we've been importing a lot of physical gold, and not just because, but because there are people that are in the know that this is much, much deeper than tariffs. Excuse me. Sorry. The issues that we're dealing with are really much, much deeper than just tariffs. But yes, there is a flight to safety, and the dollar has proven itself to no longer be a safe haven asset. For me, it never really was a safe haven asset. I know that that's our tool of barter, but I can always convert this in a heartbeat into whatever the government-based money is at any point when I need it. So yes, the tariffs are part of it, but it's also all of the chaos that's happening. So I don't know if you guys feel this, but I feel like the ground is moving beneath my feet. And that goes back to what I said. I used to have maybe 20, 30 slides that I needed to research to put my work together. Now I'm looking at like 90 to 100, and I think that's going to get worse. And that's not just because of the tariffs. That's because of everything that's happening. And everything that's happening is because we are at the end of this iteration life cycle, and they have to do something because when one system dies, another is born. So what you want to do is you want to hold your purchasing power so that you can shift into the new system on a whole bunch of different levels. And remember, the strategy is in layers. And you passed a bunch of questions, didn't you?
Nope.
Oh, you didn't?
Nope.
Oh, because I thought I saw. Okay. Oh,
You just answered.
okay. Never mind. Sorry about that. J.A. Boyle, 3875, asks, would you recommend stocking up on silver in the hopes that the gold-silver ratio starts to come down? No. Personally, The only reason why I care about that gold-silver ratio is because you care about that gold-silver ratio. But I've done my studies, ad nauseum, on what happens with gold and silver in these transitions. And while I do know that it is highly likely that we are going to see that ratio begin to come down, when we fully enter the hyperinflation, there is a much bigger flight to safety into gold, and gold seriously outperforms. And I might also kind of point out, because you guys know I do this all the time, where I show you a foreign currency's value against the US dollar, and then spot silver and spot gold. And haven't you noticed that almost 100% of the time, I've only seen it one time where that hasn't been on a really short term, but gold always outperforms because it's the primary currency metal, and it's against which that is what they do the reset against. And the gold and silver ratio is about a trade. I don't look at my metals as a trade. I look at my metals as insurance and as security and as sound money that puts me in the best possible position to weather this storm and actually build a legacy for my family for on the other side of it. And Michael asks, hi Lynette, where's the best place to sell pre-33 gold? Most local dealers, of course, they will give you spot at eBay. This is why it is so critically important for you to establish a relationship with a trusted dealer. Because if they are, you want to make sure that they actually have a strategy and an exit strategy, right? But the best place to sell it is back from where you bought it. So if you're working with us, we're going to help you through that whole process, because this isn't just about buying gold and silver and holding it forever and ever and ever. Yes, every portfolio should always have a foundation of sound money, but it depends on where we are in the overall trend cycle that would determine what that percentage would be and how it should be constructed, right? Because again, there's gold and then there's gold, and there's silver and then there's silver. So it really depends on you. But truthfully, okay, I'll just say it because I know who we are and what we're about, and so do you guys. Buy it from us and sell it back to us, right? We're going to do that for you, and stay tuned, because we want to be here and make sure that you understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, and when to do it. And this is not a trade. At this point, this is about getting to safety and holding your purchasing power intact. And Bridget H. asks, hi from Brighton, UK. Maybe I'll see you sometime. I love the UK. How difficult will it be to use silver to pay for groceries? Will stores even accept them? Surely not at face value. You don't want them to accept them at face value. This is a face value of 10 cents. This is a dime, right? And it's roughly 1/10 of an ounce of gold. It's actually closer to 3/4 of an ounce. However, it's just easier to think about a dime as 1/10. So this right now would probably cost you somewhere, don't hold me to this, to about maybe $33.70-ish or something in that vicinity. So the answer to your question, though, will it be easy or difficult to use the silver to pay for groceries? It will be easy. And we've seen this a lot in South America, particularly in Venezuela, where they will have things marked in terms of silver, in terms of gold, and even US dollars, although we saw which performs. And remember, all these grocery stores, they all have scales. And everything is computerized. So it's pretty easy to put a dime on a scale and have it come up and tell you in terms of dollars or in terms of British pounds or wherever you are in the world, how much that actually buys you. No, I believe it will be very, very simple. And we saw that as well during the sovereign debt crisis, in 2014, 13, 14, 15. And a lot of people, that's how they survived, by not necessarily, they didn't have the coins necessarily, but they had silver jewelry, they had silver flatware, things like that. So I am, I can't guarantee it, but quite honestly, I'm I'm not even going to go 99.9% sure. I'm not going to give myself any wriggle room. Yes, they will accept that. Yes. And Kathy Piscatello says, hi, Lynette. Andy Schechtman recently recommends eagles, maples first, gold and silver, then 90% junk. Well, I like Andy very much. And there are things that we absolutely agree on, because I know that he likes the collectible gold, but that isn't what he sells. And it's much more nuanced, but that is what he owns for himself. He told me personally. So I disagree with the eagles and the maples, because that's bullion. And if they do an overt confiscation, even if you say, well, I'm not going to turn it in, because they're not going to go door to door. There's not enough of it to make it worth their while to do that. But then you'd only be able to use it in the black market. And what I want is the kind of gold like my Uncle Al had. We had like at least 3,000 ounces of gold in 1965 that he could actually use in the normal marketplace. And remember, in 1965, it was illegal to hold more than 5 ounces of gold in any other way than the way that he was holding it. I want the kind of gold that I can use in the normal marketplace. That's this. This is what I feel the most comfortable with, because I'm also crystal clear on its true fundamental value. And I'm patient, because I'm not expecting Wall Street to tell me the true value of anything. We've just been taught that that's where you get good price discovery. But if you believe that, there is this bridge in Brooklyn that we could talk about. Now, I don't own it, but I could sell it to you. Not really, because I have more integrity than that. But Wolf says, I have a couple of $1,000 in fiat. Is it better to spend it now? I'm nervous to hold it. I've already filled up on gold and silver that I bought from you. Thank you so much, Wolf, and I hope I meet you in person sometime. But if you've executed the strategy, then you also know that one of the layers of the strategy is cash. Even though it's losing all of its value, that is what people will recognize first. So this is your first line of defense. And if you have executed the strategy through us, there is a certain amount of cash that you need for a certain period of time. Then after that, that's when your barterable silver and your barterable gold comes into play. And then after that, that's when your collectibles come into play. So it all depends on your personal strategy. If you have more cash than you need according to the strategy, I'm sorry, Wolf, and I love you to pieces. You're always here, and I really, really, really appreciate it. But you can't have too much gold or silver, because remember, you're not going to sit on it forever. You're going to sit on a certain platform of it. But we're going to execute the strategy so that at the other side of this, how about you have income, independent income that you can't outlive? What a concept. That's where we're headed. So if you have extra cash that you don't want to sit on and it's above what you need for the first part of that strategy, call us and see if you have any holes and get more. You can't have too much. You can't. And Robert H. asks, Ms. Zang, do you think this silver squeeze was a success or a big failure? Whatever gets more eyes on gold and silver would always be a success, because we need to inform the public. So, do I think that, and I also think that timing is everything, right? So if we're looking at growing the global movement to get sound money back in our system, That's the kind of squeeze in both gold and silver that I applaud, because that could force them. There are more of us than there are of them. We just need to get maybe 3% of the 8.4 billion people on this planet to position into gold and silver. Then we have a shot. So anything that gets eyes on gold and silver, I would consider a success. Do things always happen the way they want them to happen? Well, let me tell you, I've lived long enough to know all in due time, just not necessarily mine. So let's have some patience. Let's really put the pressure on them more than just that silver squeeze. And we can do that because there's so many of us if we come together in global community. And Chris Willis asks, can you speak on the many stackers' prediction on a silver takeoff? Well, keep in mind that I said that, I would have thought, but it doesn't matter because timing is the biggest challenge of any technician, that we would have concluded the cup formation in silver. That can happen anytime. So once that happens, this is a huge double cup. Let me see. Can we go to?
Should be able to.
Okay, let me do that. I don't think we have it there. I think it's here. Yep, here it is. Okay. Okay. Not sure what it's doing here. Okay. Can you, I might as well show you this, and I'll just update it before we go to silver, because this is on the spot gold market, and this is, it looks like as of yesterday, so there's your 31.24. But what I really want to do is show you the double cup on silver, which I've shown you before, but this is like so powerful, it's ridiculous. And let me go to fill the chart. I might not be able to do what I want to do on this laptop. Might not. I don't think I can do what I want to do. I'll tell you what. I will, let me write that down, and I will pull that, and I'll do a little something on it tomorrow. I think I can take 2 seconds to do something on the silver chart. Because the silver over time, and I mean over a long term from 71, has created the most powerful double cup that I've ever seen, ever. So once spot silver breaks above that double cup, then my expectation would be for it to soar in terms of dollars. So silver double cup. I will do that for you tomorrow and show you, because I can't show you like I thought I would be able to on this one. Sorry. And Deanna Boyd says, best way to move gold and silver if moving to another country. Is it better to have it shipped professionally? I'm going to tell you no. I'm going to tell you that the best way to do it is to bring it over as your personal and private collection. Now, guys know I travel around the world, and I always take some gold and silver with me. Not a ton of it, but enough of it. If you ship it, the customs will kill you. They will kill you. So there are better ways to do it. And also it depends on why you shipped it. Are you moving there? And remember, on you've got a $10,000 max limit. The pre-33 face value is $20, right? So you can carry an awful lot of gold and an awful lot of wealth in a very tiny package, and they let you. How many coins can you have? Divide 20 or 10,000 by 20. That's how many coins you can take. Now the new stuff, the bullion, has a face value of $50. TSA, do you think they understand any of this? I don't think so. So that, in my opinion, but there are people that do this because you want to make sure that where you're bringing the gold into the country, you want to make sure that that's the best city to bring it through. So there are nuances. And actually, I would say some of our strategy specialists understand that piece better than I do. Though I had a great conversation with the Nomad Capitalist this morning. And so if you could kind of stay tuned a little bit, Diana, because I think I'm going to have some private conversations with him as well. And we might be able to figure this out better than we figured it out yet. So have a little patience and come back and talk to us. And Scott Ellison asks, do you think I should hold on to my 401k for the next 2 years or take the penalty cash it out and buy gold or land or something more difficult for the government just to take? You have to do whatever you are comfortable doing. I can't really tell you what to do. I could tell you what I have made the choice to do. And I had a SEP IRA that once we went into a different part of this trend cycle, I no longer felt comfortable with it in those markets. And so, yes, I cashed it out and I put it into gold and silver, but mostly into this because I'm executing my strategy, right? And we're all, if you're using the sound money strategy, we're all executing the same basic strategy, but then it's customized to your goals and what you want to do. But a 401k, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And where we are in this trend cycle for 2 more years, that would scare the crap out of me. I don't think, and I could be dead wrong, but I do not think we have another 2 years in this. I do not think so. But we might. You do whatever you're comfortable with, though. And Wolf asks, during a collapse, is it likely that mortgage loans will be called in? Well, maybe we can put that in there because I did a report on what happens to real estate, and mortgages were part of that. And they won't be immediately called in, but we have that window, right? So part of the strategy is to bam, 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 pay that mortgage off before it becomes in jeopardy. Now, like I said, and maybe I was talking to you, but usually when they do those overnight resets, on average, you have about, so you'll see spot gold, you'll see gold go up maybe, I don't know, 1,000%, 3,500%, 10,000%, whatever that percentage is. We're not going to know until that happens. But usually everything then, when they do those overnight resets, everything price-wise collapses, except gold has a tendency to kind of hang out at those higher levels for, on average, about 9 months. I can tell you, I ain't going to wait because I can't guarantee that. So when they do that overnight reset, a big part of the strategy is paying off any of your fixed rate debt with dollars that have virtually zero value. That, my friends, is exactly the same strategy as the government's, to repay that debt with dollars that have less and less and less and less and less and less and less value over time. So, yes, ultimately, just like they did in 2008, where they have all of this restructuring, not in your best interest, why not just pay it off with dollars that have no value? That's the way to do it. And so Wolf, I don't know if you've actually executed the strategy, but I would call into your strategy specialist and have this conversation. And maybe that's what you do with that extra money, right? Remember, the fundamental value of 1 ounce of gold on a 1-to-1 basis, and I can't tell you what that conversion ratio is going to be until we get there, nor could I actually tell you the true fundamental value of 1 ounce of gold until we actually get there. Because the more debt they grow, the more of this they do, the higher, oh my goodness, here it is. I'll get it later. But the highest the fundamental value of 1 ounce of gold goes. So right now it's somewhere north of $42,000. Where's it going to be at that time? We'll find out. But can you see if you're buying it now at 3,200 or whatever that number is, 5,000, 10,000? Can you see how if you buy it now at that lower price in terms of dollars and then you liquidate it, boom, you can pay off that mortgage for like nothing. What might take 10 ounces today might take you a quarter of an ounce by the time that happens. And Gina Young asks, hi, Lynette, if they confiscate gold, can we keep gold backs? More than likely, yes, because that it's more of a collectible. It's more of a premium. And I'm pretty sure, but I don't know, I'll have to find this out, that if you can hold it inside of an IRA, that's the kind of gold you don't want to own. And I don't know that you can hold gold backs inside of an IRA, but I'll find out. I somehow don't think that you can. And if you can't, then that means that it's in the collectible category, which is exactly what you want. And I see a place for it in the strategy, but it's in that early cash part of the strategy. That's where I see a place for the gold backs.
Sorry, I just wanted to see if it says it here because it tells you IRA available here. No, it doesn't say that. So very interesting. It doesn't say it directly, but it could be.
I'll find out. I'll find out. I'm thinking that you can't, and so therefore it's classified as a collectible. But again, and I can see where that fits in the cash part of the strategy. It's way too big a premium for your whole portfolio. And so that I definitely wouldn't do, but I can definitely see it for a part of it. And Chadwick asks, hi, Lynette, met you at XRP Las Vegas, and you were incredible. I'll tell you what, that was an incredible experience for sure. And I will be there this year as well. When you say this type of gold, what is collectible versus American Eagle? Never heard about the collectible. I'm still learning. Chadwick, we're all still learning, and I'm glad that you saw me there, and I hope to see you again and let me know. But this is pre-1933 gold collectible coins because they are rare and unusual and therefore were exempt from confiscation back in 33 because Treasury Secretary Wooden wanted to continue to hold his coins and continue to accumulate. And so he wrote that little caveat in, but since they were indeed used in circulation, most of them, right? Something like this. This happens to be a Mint State 63. So whenever you see MS, that means Mint State. That means never been in circulation. That number afterwards, 63, tells you the level of blemish. So the blemish will run from 60, which means lots and lots and lots of blemishes, just kind of above that raw coin that I hold up all the time, right? To 70, which is like perfect. And I've never seen a pre-30. I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm saying I have personally never seen a Mint State 70. I think I own a few Mint State 68s, and that's about the highest level. I probably own more 64s, 63s. Depends on what you're trying to accomplish as to the direction that you would go in. But that's what I'm referring to when I say this type, because even though it has the same gold content weight, and I dropped the raw one, even go to the raw one has exactly the same gold content weight as the New American Eagle. And yet I cannot hold that in an IRA. What does that tell you? It tells you it's in a different classification. And some of these coins that are slabbed like this, these collectible coins, will go for many, many millions of dollars for 1 ounce of gold. So if you're doing the pre-33 coins, that's the category that you're in, even though you're not spending millions and millions and millions of dollars. That's what I want. I want to be in the category and the classification as those that have the wealth to either influence those that write the laws or be those that write the laws, because you know darn well that all of those laws and those contracts are written for their benefit. So I can do that way below fundamental value. I don't need to spend millions and millions of dollars on one coin. Does that make sense? And again, as usual, if I say something and I didn't really answer your question to where you understand it, let me know so I can try to explain it in a different way, because that is my job, and I'm not insulted by it or anything. Everybody learns and hears some things different. And Chadwick asks, yep, that's fine. Does the collectible gold have a higher capital gains tax up to 28%? I suppose that may not matter. So, yep, and why would they do that? To discourage you from buying it. Because whenever they make these laws and these rules, one of the things that they do, I've read enough of this documentation, is what do we have to do to keep people away? Or what do we have to do? How high should the fees be so that people don't want to take that hit? Like, think about your IRAs. IRAs were started in the 70s as they started to transition the risk from the corporations to the individuals, right? Because it was defined benefits before that, and now they were going into defined contributions. That is shifting the risk from the corporations to the public. And when they did that, what did they do? They said, if it went in tax-free, but then people had to pay that tax, what do people say? Most people say, I don't want to pay that tax. You're never getting away from paying the tax on it, but are you okay with the government or the central banks determining when you pay that tax and how much of that tax that you pay? There's all different strategies, but that's what perception management does. And when you say, I suppose it doesn't matter, no, it doesn't, because 100% of zero is still zero. 73% of something big is you still have something big. And you have to have that principle to work with on the other side of this mess, or as we're going through it, in order to build your wealth and to protect yourself. So Awake Now, good thing, says 6 months or more worth of expense money a year depends, right? If you're younger and you have what you consider a secure position, so you're still generating income, then maybe only 3 months. If you are retired and generating income off your portfolio, you got to look at it different. Maybe you do need a year. And maybe it's somewhere in between. So again, I'll say, give us a call, because this is where the customization comes in, right? This is where that comes in. Personally, the way that I've done it for me, because obviously I'm still working, even though I should be retired, but no, I'm not going to, don't worry. And so I've planned for the barterable part of the portfolio, which is what you're referring to in the cash, for my children, my 2 daughters, and myself, and I've done it for 3 months worth of cash. Because then I think after that point, I'm good with the barterable silver. But again, I'm still working. So Awake Now, give us a call. We'll wake you up even more, but have the conversation, putting your goals first, putting your circumstances first, because that's what we do. Before we even think about building a portfolio, we need to make sure that it supports what you're trying to do. A lot of people will just buy gold or they'll just buy silver. But what do you want that to accomplish? And maybe you have the right kind and maybe you don't. We want to make sure that everything that we do actually supports what you're trying to accomplish. That's the key in here. So I see Chris Willis asked me something.
Nope, there's a secondary question.
Oh.
To Awake Now.
Oh, would you sell gold bars and pre-33 and buy pre-33? You need to do whatever you're comfortable with. But yes, that would be the choice that I would make. And I want you to understand, I haven't always been just in this. There was a time where, yeah, I'd have a gold bar or I had a bunch of bullion. It's how I bought my house, right? So it always depends. But once we got to a certain point, because a gold bar is also bullion, and therefore, should they do an overt confiscation, they're going to take it. And if you don't show up with it, you're only going to be able to use it in the black market. I want to execute a strategy because my intention, and this is me, this may not be what you want at all, but I want to take care of my family on the other side of this, my children and my grandchildren, etc. So a lot of what I'm doing is building a legacy. That's really what I'm doing. So it depends because not everybody wants to build a legacy either. So we're for different reasons. So call us and we'll help you figure it out. And Chris Willis asks, at this stage in the game, would you recommend spending fiat on preps or metals? When you have some of both, you always room for more of both. Exactly. And that's really the way that I built my mantra. I walked in and I go, okay, where do I feel the most vulnerable? And since I'd been accumulating the metals pretty in earnest since 2002, I felt pretty comfortable in that arena. Not that you ever have too much or even enough, even though you might think you do. But there was, I have double doors on the back of my house and the house was built in 29. So anybody could just walk up and boom, kick that door in and they're in. That's where I felt vulnerable. So the first thing I did when I bought this house was put security doors on that particular door. Now, obviously, I have them everywhere else, and I've done a lot because I've been in the house for so long now. But where are you really vulnerable? And you need to start to shore that up. So to your point, when you have some of both, there's always room for more of both. And I agree with you, Chris. I can't tell you either or because it really depends on your circumstance. And we'd help you with that too. Absolutely, because we are here, we are on this planet to be of service and make a positive difference for a lot of people.
Looks like a gentleman or someone named B-Dub was unable to get cash out of their bank today.
That's going to get harder and harder and harder to do. They're closing branches. They're getting much, much more aggressive and intrusive. And the people that work at the bank don't even understand why. But it trickles down. So he couldn't get money out of the bank today, cash?
Yeah, $5,000 cash.
5,000?
I mean, it's crazy.
I'll go back to the conversation that we had earlier. Stay tuned. Just kind of stay tuned. I have some things that I'm kind of thinking about, but I don't really want to say anything just yet until they become more solid. I'm sorry you had that problem, but you want to be diversified. So if you have all of your money in one bank, you should probably open an account in another bank as well. You should not clearly, because in the military, what do they say? They say 2 is 1 and 1 is none. And that's true for any relationship that you have, really.
Forbidden Planet wants to know if you have any cryptos.
Well, April Fools! No, I don't. But I was going to tell you guys, I bought a whole bunch of cryptos because it's April 1st, and then I forgot. Because I have CRS,
And I think it was a question of diversification. So do you not see cryptos as a part of your diversification plan for now?
Not at this point, because I see them as a Trojan horse. And yes, they are going up in terms of dollars. And hey, I'm not telling you that you shouldn't do what you're comfortable doing. I'm saying you always have to do what you're comfortable doing. But I'm also saying that if you're really going to be properly diversified, you have to have the tangibles. And the reason why I'm not so diversified is because I've been doing this on some level my entire life and studying currencies and currency life cycles since 1987. And, I know that this is really just about getting people comfortable with it so that they accept it more readily. And I'm going to also say you totally want to watch the video that's going to come out next week on the stable coins and the CBDCs. You totally want to watch that. And Rosie question, what if I make my bullion coin into a pendant by having a bail put on a jeweler? Would that still be confiscation risk? Maybe, but probably not. That's why I'm not wearing it today, but you see me wear my travel bracelet. And if we ever meet and I'm doing an event, chances are pretty good I'm going to be wearing my travel bracelet. And so that's exactly what you were talking about, is having those coins put in a bezel. And so, yes, but you could also do that. Like I also did it for the girls and I with a bracelet, and I used French roosters for it, early French roosters that may give you a little bit more protection. But yes, I think if you put it into a bezel, then it's a different classification, and you are more than likely to be okay with that. And Wolf asks, what will happen to Social Security and pensions when there's a collapse? Well, here's my, yeah, it is.
It's cut at this point. I think we should probably just,
Yeah, they're leaving. I think we're done for today.
what has happened? Yeah, I have no idea. I'll put it in the chat. Sorry guys, don't know what's going on exactly.
I wonder, is Marie still here?
You're back.
Am I back?
Hold on, let's see. Yeah, looks like we're back. She's back. You're back. We're here. We're good.
Well, we're okay.
We'll probably
this
just wrap it up.
Yeah, I think we need to wrap it up for today, but we will put the link to the Sound Money movement, and so that you can look at your state, and then we'll do a call to action at some point, because we have to do this from a bottom up and a top down approach. The bottom up, getting people that or getting the public to communicate with their legislators about wanting to legalize gold and silver as money in their state, because that then would put pressure on the federal government. We might have an ally in President Trump, because he does believe in gold, but he also believes in many other things, so we'll have to see. But I think the more people that buy gold, that position into it, the better off we're going to be, and the opportunity to get it into our next monetary system is better than I've ever seen it in my entire life. And we all know I'm pretty old. So I think we're going to cut off for now. I'm sorry about any of those technical glitches, but I will see you next Tuesday, and make sure to share this, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and let's all make a positive difference for a lot of people. Bye-bye.